Good afternoon. We are very pleased to be able to serve as your judges again today. After we introduce ourselves and you introduce yourselves, don't forget to introduce the star of the show, and that's your teacher. I am Tom Tinder, an attorney from Charleston, West Virginia.
Hi, I'm Emmanuel Caudillo, Senior Advisor with the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiative in Washington, D.C.
I'm Jen Howell, Co-Executive Director of Virginia Civics, the home of the Virginia We the People program.
Hello, I'm Alex Rose.
My name is Sam Selzer.
Hi, I'm Shen Miller.
My name is Jade Springer, and our teacher is Miss Neal.
Great. Today we're going to do question number 3. I didn't see any change in expression. You're ready for anything. We're going to do question number 2 today. You know that. Quote, no society, certainly not a large and heterogeneous one, can fail in time to explode if it is deprived of the arts of compromise. No good society can be unprincipled, and no viable society can be principle-ridden, close quote. Do you agree or disagree with this opinion? What compromises were made at the Constitutional Convention of 1787? What are the benefits and costs of those compromises? And how would you distinguish between someone who is unprincipled and someone who is principle-ridden? You may begin.
Without compromise, there would be no United States of America. As John Locke wrote, if you are to be part of a governed society and receive its benefits, you have to compromise and enter a social contract. A person who wishes to be part of the society gives up absolute freedom and allows the government to make laws restricting freedom. In exchange, the government protects the citizens' natural rights. For the social contract to work in a large and heterogeneous society, a delicate balance must be maintained between too few and too many rules, and between people of varying principles.
From the beginning, our country was built on compromise. After the Articles of Confederation proved unworkable, the framers met in Philadelphia to create a stronger national government that would still protect the states and the people. Most of their decisions were the result of compromise. One of the most divisive issues involved representation in Congress. The Great Compromise struck a balance between the Virginia plan favored by the large states and the New Jersey plan preferred by small states. The Great Compromise stated that Congress would be bicameral, with a House of Representatives and a Senate. The House would have proportional representation to better reflect the will of the people, and the Senate would have equal representation to represent the interests of the state.
Debate over trade laws and slavery proved equally heated. Several southern states threatened to walk out if slavery were not preserved. The northern states felt strongly about tariffs. The two sides agreed to a package of compromises that included the now infamous 3/5 clause. Under this language, slaves counted as 3/5 of the person for purposes of determining representation in Congress and direct taxes. The Electoral College was also a compromise. Some delegates favored direct election of the president, while others wanted Congress or state legislatures to choose. According to Texas A&M professor George Edwards, the framers were tired, impatient, and frustrated. They cobbled together the Electoral College because it couldn't agree on anything else.
All of these compromises had benefits and costs. The most significant benefit is that they kept the convention from collapsing. With every compromise, the delegates were able to move on to new issues, and yet all can be criticized today. Equal representation in the Senate means that people who live in small population states have a louder voice in Congress than people who live in larger states, which seems unfair. The slave trade compromise settled issues important to North and South, but delayed the nation's reckoning over slavery. It would take a civil war and many civil rights movements to bring legal equality to Black Americans. Even now, the 3/5 clause is a painful reminder that our nation treated African Americans as less than human. The Electoral College is undemocratic. 5 times in our history, presidents were elected who lost the popular vote. However, had the delegates stood 100% behind their principles on any of these issues, there might not have been a constitution. Had the Federalists not compromised and agreed to later add a Bill of Rights, there might not have been a constitution.
We agree with Alexander Bickel that no good society can be entirely unprincipled or principle-ridden. Ironically, people who are unprincipled may compromise for self-interest, willing to do whatever is necessary for success. If there are no principles at all, however, they may refuse to do so because they want their full goal, as bullies might do in a state of nature. The principle ridden cannot see anything but the morality. They fail to see all sides of an argument, and this can stop policymaking in its tracks. Principles can hold us back or push us forward in the face of controversy. The immigration debate is revealing. There are some who advocate open borders and others who believe in strict limits on immigration. For society to solve the immigration crisis, each side cannot have its own way. A diverse country cannot survive without give and take. This is the enduring lesson of the Philadelphia Convention. We are ready for your questions.
We're ready to give you some questions. The first question is, you talked about the Electoral College, and there are now some proposals to make changes in how the Electoral College operates, or to maybe even do away with the Electoral College and have popular election of the president. What's your opinion? Should there be changes made in the Electoral College? Why or why not?
I believe that the Electoral College should go away because I believe that it's an unnecessary added step. If we are just basing it off a popular vote at the beginning, it would be easier just to stick with popular vote in the end too.
Agreeing with what Alex said, we can use the election of 2020 as an example. We had the popular vote, but it took days to figure out who was actually going to be our president, which was confusing for many people and caused lots of stress, which we should not have to exactly feel during a time where our country is supposed to be going through a transition, a smooth transition, I should say. If we just went with popular vote, we would have known earlier, and it would have been way simpler when deciding who our president is.
I agree, but to give the other side credit, back in the late 1700s, the founders, I believe, decided to bring an electoral college because the average man was uninformed and the representatives had the choice to vote as a trustee or as what their people decided to vote for, which really did help back then since it was very hard to get information other than by word of mouth.
To disagree with the Jade and Alex's point of the fact that the Electoral College is not popular vote, you could say that the Electoral College is just 50 individual popular votes for each state.
My next question talks about compromise. And compromise is often called an art. Is that an accurate description? Why or why not?
I think it absolutely is, because for each compromise, you do have to give and take, and to make it so that each person agrees to the compromise, you have to do something. You have to get it. You have to do something pretty well to do that, and doing something so well and with such skill to get that to happen is an art, and it does take skill.
Why do you think that it's so difficult for Americans to compromise on over some of today's major public issues?
I think this is because of how our system of government works today. With our two political system and how split they are, it makes neither side willing to compromise due to the fact that they're scared, number one, for their position, and number two, for their beliefs. And because of how I believe that they're complete opposites, it means, and since they're principled, it puts them at a disadvantage to compromise.
I also think that a lot of people think today that if you are one side of the political spectrum, you are kind of pressured into making sure that you cannot agree with any of the other side's points.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask if you could repeat your question just to make sure what I'm saying goes along with the lines.
Yeah, so I was just asking why you think it's so difficult for Americans to compromise over some of today's issues.
I think that it also has to do with who's running the country. For example, this year we seem so divided because sometimes, for example, with social media, you had the president going on there and saying certain things, and the people who believe in our president would go along with that as well, which could cause violence and divide our country. For example, with the Capitol, the Capitol protest or riot, you had the president kind of instructing that. Since they're so one-sided and they believe in what he says, they're just going to go do something which can unify our country even more than we already had.
I think a bit to add on to that is George Washington himself did not want to have political parties. He thought they would just divide a country, not bring us together as a unified country.
You talked about principled and unprincipled and principle ridden and so forth. Give us an example of a recent or current public official, national figure, who you think is principled or unprincipled, and give us reasons for your opinion.
I think AOC is a great example of someone who is very principled because she's very vocal about her political views on social media and in Congress.
I think many people on both sides of the political party tend to be principle ridden. And when you get closer to the middle, they tend to be less principle ridden due to the fact that they believe with neither side. They may have their principles, but they're willing to compromise since neither side agrees totally with them.
I think that Joe Biden is principled because he is trying to fix issues with both sides so that both sides agree, but at the same time making it so that in the end, he makes it the best choice possible for both sides.
I believe that Donald Trump, our previous president, is unprincipled. For example, the social media things, although his side would most likely say he's trying to unify our country, he was more dividing us, even though what we want here is to, again, compromise and have peace.
Get one more question in. So the question I have here is social media. Do you think social media has made it difficult for our politicians to compromise on important issues? Why or why not?
I think it has made our issues so politically divided due to the fact that social media spreads things quicker, but it also spreads disinformation quicker, which leads to disinformation voting, meaning also disinformation all around, which would ruin a country and can ruin a country, as seen in many instances.
Okay. That was just enjoyable. It was educational. It was informative. First of all, let me start by congratulating your teacher, the star of the show, to help you put this together and to educate you and to teach you so well. Congratulations to you, ma'am. To you all, you'll remember you were our first group yesterday, first group, the first day of this competition. And as we told you, you did very, very well. Today, you did very, very well in a different type of way. I thought today, and maybe it was because of the question, but it was more conversational, and it was more, and you understood maybe from the comments we made yesterday that there's no right or wrong answers. It's just what's your opinion. Can you back it up? And so you gave us good opinions today, backed up by excellent examples. And I think you really have a complete grasp of what this We the People program is all about. Your 4-minute presentation was a great story. I just liked some of the terms that you mentioned. A delicate balance. That's a wonderful term to talk about compromise and so forth. And then you gave examples, and you talked about bullies, and then you talk about cobbling together the electoral college, and it was just a very nice, informative conversation that we had today. And you shared with us so much of your knowledge, and you did it in such a wonderful way. I just want to commend you on that, and I just wanted to tell you how inspiring you all are. It's really an inspiration to have the opportunity to have these discussions with our future leaders. And please, as we said yesterday, please use your leadership skills and your knowledge to be leaders in your school and in your community and in your state, because if you do that, then we're going to have a bright future in this country. Congratulations to you. Thank you very much. We wish you the very best.
I'd like to commend you on a great presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like how you brought terminology like the social contract. It's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, because and you shared about, there have to be compromises here and there, and that you don't want too few rules or too many rules. You got to be somewhere in the middle there. And so as you begin further developing these topics, we could continue focusing on that to really see, like, how does all play together in the social contract that's we're all in. And so that's just a challenge as you dig deeper into these topics through the years as you study this. Look into that. It's really good. And also something about the electoral college. I didn't know about that, about the delegates were tired and impatient, so they came up with the EC. Thank you for bringing those things up, because then you could talk about another thing about, we just compromise just to get things done. Is that actual a positive compromise, or that's just like, it's lunchtime, let's get it all done, and it's not the best result? So get deep into that, because not a lot of people talk about that, and that's very interesting. So if I could, and I enjoyed this because you brought new things for us to think about, even us professionals here, and that shows you that you are well prepared. You've been preparing for this, and it has shown. And so I commend you on this. It's been a great couple of days spending time with you. Continue engaging in civic education. Please continue doing that, and thank you so much. All right, take care.
All right. So the one word I kept writing down with your presentation was balance. That seemed to be the thread of your opening statement, that it's all about balance. And I saw you bring that necessary kind of balance to the follow-up, the Q&A period as well. I mean, I could tell that, you measured out your response before you jumped in to answer. You thought about, you sort of weighed out the possibilities in your head of, all right, how can I formulate this answer? And you were very thoughtful before you jumped in. And I really appreciated that, because that is what we have to do to keep this country going is, don't just react. You have to stop, and you have to think, and you have to weigh all of the different options before you jump in. And you guys did a really, really good job of doing that. And when you did that, you came up with some really just excellent answers. And, my next question was going to be, because you did such a good job of identifying what a lot of the issues are. My next question was going to be, well, how do we fix it? How do we move on from this place where it's difficult to come to compromise, it's difficult to come to consensus? And I think with the way that you all are able to think through these issues and are able to realize that it takes a balance and it's not all about me, you guys are the ones who are going to be able to come up with the right solutions to these problems. So I am comforted that our country is in your hands, and I want to thank you for all of the work that you put into this.
Thank you for taking the time.